On November 11, UFC 295, Prochazka vs. Pereira will take place at Madison Square Garden in New York City. The event will crown a light heavyweight king. The fight for the light heavyweight title between former 205-pound champion Jiří Procházka and former middleweight champion Alex Pereira was originally going to be the co-main event, but it was moved to the main event when Jon Jones hurt his shoulder 3 weeks before his fight with Stipe Miocic. Many fans were looking forward to the highly anticipated heavyweight fight between two of the UFC's all-time greats. However, the new main event at UFC 295 is jam-packed with action and features two of the scariest finishers in the light heavyweight class. Glover Teixeira, a friend and partner of Pereira's, beat Prochazka in a fight of the year in June 2022 to win the light heavyweight title. It's too bad that Prochazka never got to defend his crown. As soon as Prochazka beat Teixeira in Singapore, he got what doctors called the worst shoulder injury we've ever seen. Prochazka gave up his belt because he didn't want to hold up the division while he took more than a year off to heal. This also happened to the next winner, Jamahal Hill, who lost his belt earlier this year after tearing an Achilles tendon. Since the title was open and Prochazka was still ranked as the world's best light heavyweight, he was the next person to try to take it back. On November 11, he will be matched up with Pereira, the former 185-pound king who beat current champions Sean Strickland and Israel Adesanya by knockout. Pereira has fought many times in kickboxing at the light heavyweight level, but he has only done so once in mixed martial arts. 3 months ago, Pereira barely beat Jan Blachowicz, who used to be the 205-pound king, by a split decision. Pereira moved to the front of the pack of people who want to be UFC champions after his third win over a current or past champion. All of these athletes have one thing in common: they were all UFC champions at one point. A lot of top fighters who have held or fought for a UFC title are on Prochazka and Pereira's resumes. On top of that, these two fighters have scored some of the worst wins in UFC history against those same opponents. With a career MMA record of 29-3-1, Prochazka has knocked out 25 of his opponents and finished 28 of them. In 2021, he beat Dominic Reyes with a spinning back elbow that made the news. 4 performance awards have been given to Prochazka because he has finished all 3 of his UFC opponents: Teixeira, Reyes, and Volkan Ozdemir. In the same way, Pereira has won 3 fights by knockout since his UFC debut at MSG in 2021, beating Strickland, Adesanya, and Andrius Michailidis. Even though they have only fought 9 times together, Prochazka and Pereira have already shown that they can beat well-known UFC fighters. Based on the style of the fight, it's likely that both fighters will want to keep the fight standing at first. One of Prochazka's 3 wins was by defeat, but 2 of them were almost 10 years ago. Pereira, who used to kickbox, has only been taken down once in the UFC. Both of these players are very good at stand-up. Prochazka lands 5.77 important strikes per minute, which is 69.7% more than the average of 3.4 strikes per minute in the UFC. Another thing is that Prochazka scores 55% of the big strikes he throws, compared to 44.9% for the UFC as a whole. His record for knockouts is also 2-0. It's just as dangerous for Pereira to strike. Pereira is a world-class kickboxer who beats his opponents by combining technique with high output. The rate at which Pereira makes 5.23 significant strikes per minute is the 4th highest in UFC history. He connects with 62% of the significant strikes he attempts. Only Alistair Overeem and bantamweight king Sean O'Malley have landed more strikes than Pereira at distance, 99.3% of his total strikes in 6 UFC fights. This makes Pereira the 3rd most accurate striker in UFC history. Both athletes are known for having tremendous knockout power, so it might come as a surprise that they only have 2 knockouts between them. Prochazka and Pereira are so good that once they knock someone down, they can't get back up. When you put these 2 figures next to each other, you can see that Prochazka is more willing to take a few hits in order to land a bunch of his own. Prochazka takes almost 2 more hits than his Brazilian opponent, because he gets knocked down more often and more times per minute. Another interesting thing about this fight is how well they can move on their feet. Both of them are very accurate, but Pereira's hits are much more varied, which always makes his opponents guess. About 41% of Pereira's hits go to the head, 34.7% go to the body, and 24.3% go to the legs. The fights Pereira has had against Adesanya have shown that his calf kicks quickly make it hard for his opponent to move. Prochazka, on the other hand, hits the head more than 85% of the time. It has worked for Prochazka in the past, but this could be great for Pereira because he will only have to worry about a single attack, while Prochazka has to watch out for leg kicks, head kicks, and Potent's famous left hook all the time. As for Pereira, Prochazka shouldn't expect any fighting from him. Even though he took Adesanya down once, Pereira has been taken down 8 times in 6 fights, and he looked much less at ease on the mat than he did on his feet. Prochazka might have a lot of success if he tries to take Pereira down at any time, especially if he does it while on top, like he did in his fight against Teixeira. The next thing you should think about is how Prochazka will look after getting hurt badly. You'd hope he's been able to get back to his old self, but surgeries often make it harder for athletes to do, as well as they did before the accident. The plan for Prochazka might stay the same as it was for his last 3 fights if he looks good right away. If Prochazka's shoulder doesn't let him move as quickly and powerfully as it used to, will he have switched his training camp to more wrestling? When it comes to UFC fights, this is Pereira's second. His first fight was a 3-rounder. Will his cardiovascular work last longer than 25 minutes at a bigger weight class? And if his stamina held up against Blachowicz' polish power, what about against a natural 205-pounder who has shown over and over that he can easily beat opponents? When Prochazka and Pereira fight for the vacant light heavyweight title in the main event of UFC 295. Prochazka versus Pereira in Madison Square Garden on November 11. All of these questions will be solved.